All right, so let's see who's on.
Hey, Darren.
Hey. So Melissa, it just says your first name. That's DEC, right? Unmute everybody. Okay, everybody, this is our first virtual meeting, and I have not.
Okay, everybody, this is our first virtual meeting.
So I'm getting tons of feedback right now, so I just ask everybody to.
I'm getting tons of feedback right now, so
I'm going to mute everybody. So.
Everybody to. I'm going to mute.
All right, I had to mute everybody there because when I started unmuting everybody, it got crazy. All I was getting was feedback here. So you got to bear with me here, and I'm just going to scroll through and make sure we have our committee members. Brendan, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Okay, I got Brian Hahn from EFC. We have John G from ESD. Let's see. Do we have? Right. Carrie from DOB. Is Emma on here? Yep, Emma Davis. DOB. Diana is not joining, so Jessica DePrima will be representing Department of Health. Let's see, do we have Jody from DASNY? Yep, Jody. Okay, Jody, I'm going to unmute you. Unmute Jody.
Yeah.
Emma.
Emma.
Heather Saunders from NYSERDA on the line.
Heather Saunders from NYSERDA on the line.
Oh, this is so bad.
Hi, it's Stephanie on the phone. I'm trying to get into the WebEx.
Okay.
Not letting me in very
Hi,
well.
it's Stephanie on the phone. I'm trying to get into the WebEx. Okay. Not letting me in very well.
And is Matthew Haas from ESD.
And is Matthew Haas from ESD.
I don't see Matthew. Okay. That's right. We have
He sends in draft.
Okay.
DEC,
Right, we have
EFC,
EC, OGS, EFC.
all right. Okay, oops, sorry. Need to get Brendan up and live. Okay. So let's get started. Looks like, it's terrible feedback when I start unmuting multiple people. So I am just going to basically have Brendan, my co-chair from DEC, unmuted. And when we get into comment period, which will be in a few minutes, I'll unmute everybody one at a time and call on you. And then I will unmute the members of the committee that are present, and we can have a voice vote on everything. Is Carrie Jane King on here? Yes, she is. Okay. So we have myself, Darren DeRocha, from representing OGS, Brendan Woodruff, my co-chair, representing DEC, Brian Hahn, representing EFC, Environmental Facilities Corporation, Heather Saunders, representing NYSERDA, Jody Smith-Anderson, representing DASNY, Carrie Jane King, representing NYPA, Emma Davis, representing the Division of Budget, and Jessica DePrima, representing the Department of Health, and John G, representing ESD. The DOT does not seem to be present, but I will keep looking to see if Matthew joins the meeting. And I apologize for the clunky technical aspects of this meeting. It's our first virtual meeting. And I wish I could just unmute everybody, but then all I get is static and my own voice on a delay coming back at me. So I'm just going to have to unmute people when the time comes. All right. So with that, I introduce Brendan Woodruff. He's the new co-chair from DEC. In past years, it was Beth Meir, but Brendan's going to co-chair this committee with me going forward. And Brendan, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank the folks who've worked on specs for their hard work getting these to this point. I want to thank everybody who's weighed in, and I'm looking forward to a good meeting today. I believe Beth had a few remarks as well, if we can find her to unmute her.
Beth, where are you?
I think she's under call-in user.
Is that call-in user 2? Is that Beth?
It should be, yep.
Beth, are you
Hello?
call-in user 2?
Yeah, I think so. Hello.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Great. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Brendan. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say a few remarks. As you know, I'm in the process of stepping back from my role as the DEC designee to co-chair this committee. And as I do so, I wanted to take a moment, if you'll indulge me, to reflect on all we have accomplished and to thank all of you for your dedication to this work. I want to give a particular shout out to those of you who have been doing this work with me since the very beginning when EO4 was first signed in 2008. Heather Saunders, NYSERDA Sustainability Coordinator, who has led on the development of many specs, lighting in particular comes to mind, and has been dedicated to outreach and training. Thank you for your good judgment and solid leadership. Jody Smith-Anderson, DASNY Sustainability Coordinator, who has similarly been a champion of engagement and training and took the lead on many building-related specs, such as motion-activated lighting. Thank you for always stretching our imagination about what is possible. Terry Jen King, NYPA's Sustainability Coordinator, who I believe has built a program at her agency that is a model for us all. Thank you for your wisdom and guidance. Shireen Brock, who took over as reporting chair from DEC recycling icon Deb Jackson more than 5 years ago, and has led us forward into a new era of continuous improvement and harmonization. John Vanna, director of the Pollution Prevention Unit at DEC, who has been generous with his time and the resources of his unit, and has taken the lead on many specs. Your judgment is always spot on and your insight invaluable. Todd Gardner, the lead for OGS's Green Procurement Team and now also OGS's Sustainability Coordinator. Under his leadership, OGS has issued 10 all-green contracts from lighting to solar power purchase agreements. Darren DeRosa, who has been my stalwart companion in leading this interagency effort. Without your good judgment, hard work, and good humor, we never would have accomplished so much. And last but not least, my invaluable colleague, Brendan Woodruff, who has been leading the Operations and Engagement Subcommittee with Jody so impressively, and who my commissioner is now designating as his new designee to co-chair this committee with OGS. Brendan brings many strengths to this work and these issues. A deep background in public policy, including a master's from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and a commensurate understanding of how to get good work done in government. Also, a gift for communication and team building, as evidenced by his leadership building out our SharePoint site for sustainability coordinators, creating and convening our annual face-to-face meeting with them, and convening and leading our recent round of one-on-one project meetings with agencies. All in addition to running the enormously successful statewide Green Your Commute Day and other events. Moreover, and perhaps most important to me, Brendan has a vision of the holistic nature of sustainability and the interconnected and cross-cutting nature of all our efforts, from reducing greenhouse gas emissions to protecting pollinators. It is with a great feeling of satisfaction that I pass the baton over to you, Brendan, and to all of you who serve on this committee, and the many staff who support our work, who I do not have time to list here by name. Over the past decade, we have built an impressive infrastructure to support and maintain agency sustainability and respond to the mandate to address climate change and reduce waste and toxic chemical use and conserve water and natural resources into the future. I am so, so proud of the work we have achieved together. My heart will be with you as you move this work forward, and I have the utmost confidence in all of you. Thank you, and thanks for giving me the time.
All right, thanks, Beth. And just so you guys know, you can unmute yourself. So even when I click mute all, if you guys want to, if I'm failing to get to someone, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. So let's see, let's get into the next on the agenda is the public comment period. We only allotted 10 minutes. It's definitely going to take longer than that, I'm anticipating, but why don't we start off in no particular order except the way it's lining up the participants on my screen. Since Dean Thompson was here first, Dean, would you like to speak?
Very much so.
Yes.
I assume you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you, sir.
Very good. I will get underway. So fasten your seatbelt, and I will get going. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to ask everybody who does provide comments. I said this as I was sending you the link, but please keep it to 3 minutes or less. So go ahead, Dean. Thanks.
Okay, very good. RFCI, which represents over 90% of all resilient flooring marketed throughout North America, has worked diligently and in good faith with the Flooring Specification Committee. As written by the committee, the specification of vinyl flooring, which is not justified by any environmental health or safety regulations or consensus-based standards. RFCI submitted a revised specification for committee consideration in April 2020. I received a May 29th reply indicating RFCI would receive a response to our recommended revised specification as soon as the committee has the information necessary. From information posted for the November 9 meeting, RFCI was able to review the revised specification, and while some changes were adopted, the RFCI recommendation to modify the specification to include the purchasing of phthalate-free vinyl flooring was not included. Flooring manufacturer and flooring contractor comments, which were provided this week, could have been provided much earlier had RFCI been informed in a timelier manner that our recommendation was not included. We feel strongly that recent comments deserve thorough review. Comments posted for the November 9 meeting stated that the manufacturers who commented were neutral on the vinyl flooring restriction. The statement does not represent the vinyl flooring manufacturers' points of view, as producers are strongly opposed to the specification, as evidenced by the 12 major flooring manufacturer comments recently submitted. These are the same manufacturers who produce other products that are included in the flooring specification, and they are speaking loudly that vinyl flooring needs to be included. Flooring contractors, who are the providers of services and products to New York agencies, have a voice in this final specification process, and comments were submitted yesterday by StarNet, the organization that represents a broad base of flooring contractors, including those who serve the New York market. The International World Health Organization's Agency for Research on Cancer classifies PVC as a Group 3 agent, which means it is not classifiable as to its carcinogenicity to humans. The Food and Drug Administration approves PVC-made plastics for repeated use and for food contact products. PVC medical supplies are ubiquitous, including PVC blood bags, proven through science as the best way to preserve our nation's blood supply. Other states considered as environmental leaders include California and Washington. The state of California Environmental Protection Agency, through its Proposition 65 listing, identifies chemicals of concern, and the list dated January 3rd, 2020, has approximately 616 chemicals, and polyvinyl chloride PVC is not included on that list. Following the flooring industry's move away from orthophthalates, the California Department of Toxic Substances and the Safer Consumer Products Branch removed vinyl flooring from their priority product work plan and complimented vinyl flooring producers for helping the state of California achieve its safer consumer product goals. The Safer Products for Washington law authorizing Washington state to regulate classes of chemicals in consumer products, especially those that are considered as persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic. Polyvinyl chloride PVC is not included on the state of Washington list.
30 seconds.
Designed to reform the regulation of chemicals in commerce, the Lautenberg Chemical Act does not include PVC. All of the green building rating systems that are known in the market, including the U.S. Green Building Council, are not included. The New York specification to avoid PVC rejects findings of the 2007 report published by the U.S. Green Building Council's Technical Service Advisory Committee, which concluded that a credit rewarding avoidance of PVC could steer decision makers toward using materials that are worse for human and environmental health. Finally, RFCI respectfully requests that final approval be postponed to a later date to allow time for the committee to evaluate and discuss with RFCI valuable flooring manufacturer, flooring contractor, and other comments recently submitted. Doing what is right must trump doing what is expedient. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. You're a little long, but that's okay. All right, so I'll start going alphabetically. How about Benjamin Gahn? Ben, I think you wanted to comment. I unmuted you, or did I? Yeah, okay.
Yep, I'm ready to go. Okay, thank
sir.
you. Good afternoon. Sure. I'm Ben Gann, a director at the American Chemistry Council, where I manage ACC's North American Flame Retardant Alliance, which represents the leading producers of flame retardants used in industrial and consumer applications. NAFRA supports the transparent regulation of flame retardants that ensures both chemical safety and fire protection. Fire safety is a public health issue, and flame retardants are an important prevention tool to help reduce fires, property damage, and fire-related casualties. The Interagency Committee's current proposal for computers and displays is overly broad and is likely to increase fire risk. Fire still represents a very real danger in the U.S., and this is no less true in New York. In 2018, the last year for which data is available, there were over 78,000 fire incidents, which resulted in $183 million of property damage, 937 civilian injuries, and 108 deaths to civilians. NAFRA previously submitted comments related to the specifications for computers and displays. In the section titled Disclosure of Flame Retardants in Computers, NAFRA asserts that the focus on halogenated flame retardants lacks sufficient justification and ignores the work done by scientific and regulatory authorities. In response to suggested changes by NAFRA for that section, the Interagency Committee stated, quote, halogenated flame retardants as a class pose numerous hazards and are a legitimate focus of green procurement, end quote. This statement by the Interagency Committee ignores the conclusions reached by the National Academy of Sciences in its report titled A Class Approach to Hazard Assessment of Organohalogen Flame Retardants that was published in May 2019. In the report, the NES rejected a single class approach for assessing halogenated flame retardants and instead suggested grouping them into one of 14 subclasses based on chemical structure, physicochemical properties, and predicted biologic activity. It appears that the Interagency Committee instead utilized data from polybrominated diphenyl ethers, or PBDEs, a subclass of older halogenated flame retardants, as a proxy for all halogenated flame retardants. Using data from PBDEs as a proxy for assessing all halogenated flame retardants is not supported by the findings in the NES report, and therefore is inappropriate to use as a basis for regulatory action. One final point that was not included in NAFRA's written comments regarding computers and display specifications: plastic and electronic enclosures, such as those used for computers and displays, include modern halogenated flame retardants that are fully recyclable by mechanical processes. In contrast, plastic electronic enclosures that include the most frequently used alternative to halogenated flame retardants are more difficult to recycle and much less cost-effective. This should be an important consideration for the Interagency Committee as it considers the best way to achieve New York's green procurement and sustainability goals. On behalf of NAFRA, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We look forward to continuing our dialogue with the Interagency Committee regarding green procurement and sustainability goals.
Ben, that was amazing. Coming in at 2:49. I appreciate that. Next is Bob Rossi.
Have you unmuted me?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Didn't want to speak into a vacuum. Thank you all. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be here and speak at this meeting. The New York State Business Council, NYSBC, is a statewide alliance of businesses and business networks working to advance a vibrant, just, and sustainable economy in New York State. My name is Bob Rossi. I'm the executive director, and I'm here today representing thousands of businesses based in New York State that have made a commitment to manage and grow their businesses in a way that sustains their natural environment, safeguards their workforce and their community, and builds long-term economic prosperity. These goals are often referred to as triple bottom line business values. They're intrinsically connected because a clean environment and healthy citizenry are essential to a strong economy. So I'd like to add for the record a few of these businesses who have already submitted letters in support of this meeting. Those are Seventh Generation, Naturepedic, and Ecos. I'd also like to add the following business organizations into the record: the American Sustainable Business Council, that's our parent organization; Healthy Building Network; Sustainable Furnishing Council; Social Venture Circle; and One Worker, One Vote. Together, we wholeheartedly support holding this meeting and the adoption of New York State's green procurement specifications, which take a pollution prevention and hazard-based approach. Such an approach safeguards New Yorkers by reducing our exposure to harmful chemicals. During this health crisis, these issues are all the more critical. New York State was hit hard first by COVID and demonstrated its ability to take the difficult steps necessary to address the crisis and become a model for the nation. Now, through the committee's leadership, we can also demonstrate that we can take the necessary steps to protect our citizens from the harmful chemicals that present barriers to a full recovery from COVID. Taking one class of chemicals as an example, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, have been accumulating in our watersheds and our bodies for decades, and they do not biodegrade because they do not biodegrade and we cannot metabolize them. A growing body of research now shows that PFAS poisoning can weaken our immune system, undermine our resistance to infections like COVID, and even reduce our antibody response to vaccines. This news coming as we're searching for vaccines and looking to roll them out expeditiously. PFAS can be a barrier to the efficacy of that effort. So we must now work to reverse this contamination. Such steps are absolutely critical for creating a healthier New York State workforce. taking a strong pollution prevention and hazard-based approach has other ways of driving economic growth in addition to protecting our workforce. It incentivizes the responsible business choices and green tech innovations that we depend on for a safer future. In most cases, these alternative materials already exist. We have among our networks manufacturers that create, for example, PFAS-free alternatives for products like food packaging. Where those don't exist, we believe New York State can and should be a nation leading in innovation, green tech innovation. So thank you for your nation leading work. We encourage you to continue New York's legacy of nation leadership on these issues. We understand that this is not simply the committee's responsibility to be stewards of the environment, to also safeguard New Yorkers and the New York State economy in the choices you make. So with that in mind, I wish to close by underscoring that the businesses we're representing today are New York State businesses employing New Yorkers, and that the small and local businesses in New York State are the drivers of job growth and economic growth in New York State. Thank you for this time.
Yep. All right. Thanks a lot, Bob. Amy Costello. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm Amy Costello with Armstrong Flooring, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide comments regarding the latest draft of the floor covering specification being provided by the Interagency Committee on Sustainability and Green Procurement. Armstrong Flooring has a long and strong advocate for safe and sustainable products and building practices based on life cycle assessment, sound science, and risk assessment. As North America's largest producer of resilient flooring, Armstrong Flooring supports the comments previously submitted by the Resilient Floor Covering Institute and objects to the statement, quote, manufacturers are supportive of the specification, which was included in the New York State DEC's response to comments on proposed specification on floor coverings amended. Armstrong Flooring does not formulate with virgin orthophthalates or heavy metals such as lead. Our Material Assessment Committee regularly reviews and evaluates new and existing chemicals and formulations for human health and environmental hazards. Our chemical review and evaluation process goes beyond regulated substances to identify and reduce the use of chemicals of concern. Polyvinyl chloride used in vinyl flooring is inert, highly stable, and unreactive to typical environmental conditions. Our environmental flooring products are tested and comply with low volatile organic compounds requirements and standards such as Floor Score, which seek to assure healthier indoor air quality. Vinyl flooring provides additional substantial health, safety, and performance benefits related to other flooring options because it is durable and easy to clean, which minimizes bacterial growth, making it ideal for use in offices, healthcare facilities, and schools. Vinyl flooring is a sustainable choice. The long product lifespan, typically 30 to 50 years, translates to reduction in waste sent to landfills and conservation of raw materials that would otherwise be consumed in the manufacturing of new products. Our vinyl flooring products contain up to 40% recycled content, which includes reprocessed scrap material from our manufacturing processes and other orthophthalate and heavy metal-free pre-consumer recycled content. We have completed cradle-to-gate life cycle assessments and provide publicly available environmental product declarations for our flooring products. Based on our third-party certified life cycle assessments and life cycle assessments completed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, vinyl flooring has lower environmental footprints compared to alternative flooring products. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on the proposed floor covering specification for the purchase of flooring in New York by New York agencies. As currently written, the specification, which includes the prohibition of purchasing vinyl flooring, is not justified by any environmental, health, or safety regulations or consensus-based standards. The current draft specification fails to account for the significant health, safety, performance, and sustainability benefits of vinyl flooring, and therefore, we believe it is in the best interest of the taxpayers of New York. We respectfully request that the prohibition of purchasing vinyl flooring be removed from your latest specification. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amy. Okay, Going down. Okay, Dom DeCaria.
Hi, Darren. Thank you so much. The Vinyl Institute appreciates the opportunity to provide comments concerning the latest draft of the floor covering specification being developed by the Interagency Committee on Sustainability and Green Procurement. The VI supports the comments from the Resilient Floor Covering Institute and the myriad manufacturers of vinyl flooring who are submitting letters in opposition to the draft floor covering specification. In addition, the Vinyl Institute is troubled by the vague reference in the specification regarding concerns about the hazards posed by PVC during manufacturing and at the end of life. The committee demonstrates bias by referencing the toxicity of chemical intermediates used in the production of PVC, while not similarly referencing the use of other materials with similar or worse toxicity profiles in the life cycles of alternative flooring products. The response also refers to a plastics scorecard published in 2015 by an environmental activist group whose anti-PVC recommendations are consistent with others that have led to millions of dollars in failed product and negative public health impacts without any environmental or human health benefit. The life cycle concerns described must be applied fairly and consistently across all materials used in products that are in scope. Applying life cycle toxicity concerns to PVC as the basis for deselection shows apparent bias against a particular material. Our comments highlight several critical instances of this bias. And notably, the specification avoids and ignores the 2007 report from the U.S. Greenville Council Technical Science Advisory Committee findings, which conclude that a credit or any deselection avoidance of PVC could steer decision makers toward using materials that are worse for human and environmental health. Invoking life cycle concerns to restrict PVC while ignoring equivalent or greater issues with other materials is unjust, arbitrary, disparaging, ensures negative outcomes for environmental and human health, and hurts the credibility of the state of New York with prospective manufacturers and stakeholders. Further changes must be made to ensure consistent applicability of the criteria across all materials, thereby strengthening the specification itself. As we've offered in the past, we would be happy to discuss with the committee staff their specific concerns about PVC manufacturing and other issues regarding vinyl flooring. There appears to be significant discrepancies in how PVC production and use in flooring applications is treated by the committee compared to other products manufactured at similarly regulated facilities. The state should consistently apply its emissions criteria and properly evaluate the toxicity of all alternative flooring materials in their life cycle while eliminating the restriction of PVC from the flooring specification. Vinyl Institute requests the committee postpones the approval of the floor covering specification and instead considers adopting the proposed RFCI specification submitted in May of 2020, and we stand available to provide technical assistance to the committee in an effort to establish the best possible floor covering specification for New York. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Tom. Elizabeth Moran.
Hi, thank you all for, hi there. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment today. I'll keep my comments brief. My name is Elizabeth Moran. I'm the Environmental Policy Director for NYPIRG, the New York Public Interest Research Group. And we think that the mission of this task force is incredibly important. We're thrilled that you guys are meeting today, and we encourage you to make sure that you keep up with these meetings and move forward with establishing green procurement specifications. These specifications set a very important precedent for not just the entirety of the state, but for the rest of the country as well. Now, I'd like to speak specifically to the preference for PFAS-free products and those free of chemicals on the California Proposition 65 asthmagen list, particularly with PFAS chemicals. So many people are familiar with the dangers of PFAS contaminants because of rampant drinking water pollution. In New York State, there are millions of New Yorkers that have been relying on drinking water sources that have been contaminated with either PFOA or PFOS. And more that we learn about these contaminants, the more we realize that it's likely the entire class of chemicals that they're a part of likely have adverse health impacts. PFOA and PFOS have been linked to 6 different diseases, and those include preeclampsia, thyroid disease, testicular cancer, high cholesterol, liver disease, and more. And as others have noted, it is, as we learn more, being linked to other illnesses. Immunosuppression, which we're all particularly sensitive to right now because of the COVID pandemic. So there is, unfortunately, in New York State and the country, a tendency towards waiting until people get sick before proactive action is taken. And that's unfortunately been the case with PFOA and PFOS and now some newer PFAS chemicals. And the best way to address this issue and prevent illness down the line is addressing the entire class of chemicals, addressing the entire class of PFAS chemicals, because it does seem likely that the other PFAS chemicals have similar health impacts. Additionally, we can't continue to wait until people get sick before we take action. It should be dependent upon industry first proving that these chemicals are safe for our health before they go to market. So the work of this council is incredibly important to start setting the stage for that. So NYPIRG speaks today in support of the green procurement specifications that are on the table. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. Let's see. Greg Campbell Cohen.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this year's meeting. My name is Greg Campbell Cohen, and I'm the campaigns manager at Clean and Healthy New York and a liaison for the Just Green Partnership, which is a coalition of 50 organizations representing over 1 million New Yorkers. I want to start by thanking everyone who wrote in support of this meeting and the tentative specifications, including the Center for Environmental Health, Mind the Store, the Ecology Center, Beyond Plastics, the Sierra Club Atlantic Chapter, the Great Neck Breast Cancer Coalition, the Huntington Breast Cancer Action Coalition, Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, Women's Voices for the Earth, Green Inside and Out, and Environmental Advocates of New York. We're all very pleased this meeting was able to continue as scheduled. Before I begin, I would also like to take a moment to thank Beth Meir for her leadership and bid her a fond farewell, and to say how much we look forward to working with Brendan, Darren, and the rest of the committee in the years to come. New York has the 11th largest economy in the world. That means our purchasing decisions have a greater impact on the environment than those made by South Korea, Russia, or Spain. When the state signals a preference for sustainably sourced and non-toxic materials, it rewards businesses that choose to be thoughtful about their environmental impact, sends ripples through the global economy, and makes sustainable products available to those who cannot otherwise afford them. We strongly support the goals of this task force, and while Clean and Healthy New York appreciates the extraordinary circumstances under which this meeting is taking place, we hope that going forward we can return to our regular schedule, such that we may continue to lead by example for our peers, both domestic and international. This task force hazard-based approach to chemicals brings into focus an essential and often neglected aspect of environmental stewardship, one that is holistic in its scope and critical to ensuring the safety of those involved at every step of a product's life cycle. We ask that the task force continues to integrate toxics into its assessment of a product's environmental merit, and we are heartened by and deeply supportive of the tentatively approved specifications that are proposed to be finalized today. Specifically, we support the preference for PFAS-free lubricants and those free of chemicals on the California Prop 65 and AOEC asthmagen lists, the ongoing attention to halogenated flame retardants in computers and electronics, and the preferable materials listed for both adhesives and floor coverings. In particular, we strongly support the clear preference away from vinyl flooring. We urge the committee to approve these tentative specifications today. We also look forward to formally commenting on the new tentative specifications proposed for public comment and appreciate the attention given to PFAS chemicals in apparel and textiles. Thank you again for your attention, and I look forward to the rest of today's meeting.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, next is Jay West.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Jay West, and I'm here today representing a group called the Performance Fluoropolymer Partnership, the members of which are producers of fluoropolymers, fluoroelastomers, and polymeric perfluoropolyethers. And thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on the lubricant specification on such short notice. As we have said previously in comments, we're concerned that the language in the background section of the lubricant specification carries a strong implication that the fluoropolymer polyfluorotetraethylene, or PTFE, is somehow dangerous. But PTFE has been used for over 40 years in permanently implantable medical devices with no outcomes indicative of chronic toxicity. Is there any more personal exposure than a permanently implanted medical device? I don't think so, and that's why we're challenged to understand the committee's intent to ban it and other fluoropolymers from lubricants purchased by the state, and to create public concern in doing so. PTFE and other fluoropolymers are reviewed by the US FDA in medical devices and parallel authorities around the world in a range of medical applications, including non-invasive heart and peripheral vascular surgery, and filters and tubing for respirators, which we all know are critical to helping those most debilitated by COVID-19. The proposal to ban PTFE and other fluoropolymers from lubricants purchased by the state makes little sense, given the strict oversight in medical applications where they are in direct contact with bodily tissues and fluids. And again, the rationale is unclear. In addition, PTFE and other fluoropolymers have been shown to adhere to internationally agreed to criteria as polymers of low concern. The data in peer-reviewed literature demonstrate that fluoropolymers are not toxic, they are not bioavailable, and they are not mobile in environmental media. They do not present significant toxicity concerns, and they do not degrade into other PFAS under a wide range of biological and environmental conditions. Regarding performance, PTFE lubricant thickeners provide many advantages compared to other thickening additives because of the extreme low coefficient of friction and their stability in the face of thermal and chemical challenges. And the linear structure of PTFE molecules themselves and the low intermolecular forces allow those chains to slide over another, which makes them particularly useful in applications where grease may be squeezed out of tight spaces. It is our position that the draft lubricant spec treatment of PFAS is overly broad, and it could be improved through consideration of more accepted approaches to PFAS, such as that of the Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council, a group which is formed specifically to provide fact-based information on which state agencies and councils such as this could rely in decision-making. The attempt to ban PTFE and other fluoropolymers and lubricants purchased by the state goes against the long history of medical use and the intrinsic properties of fluoropolymers that indicate low concern for hazard and exposure. I would also like to echo what I've heard from some of the other commenters, that I do believe that in the response to comments, our comments were mischaracterized by asking for positive treatment. I don't know who else has provided comment on fluoropolymers in the lubricant specification, but we have never asked for positive treatment, and we're kind of surprised to see that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to provide comments. That is all I had to say today.
Okay, thank you, Jay. John Stewart. John Stewart, you're unmuted, John. Go ahead.
I'll defer to Dominic DeCaria, who spoke earlier.
Okay. Very good. Let's see. Kimberly Wise White. Okay, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, great, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great. I'm Dr. Kimberly Wise-White. I'm a toxicologist with the American Chemistry Council. As a scientist, I share and support the approaches to mitigate human health risk and encourage having science and hazard exposure approaches at the forefront of procurement decisions. And while I appreciate the committee's position to use hazard-based lists for procurement decisions, I do continue to disagree with this position and encourage decisions to be based on risk information, not just hazard. Using hazard as the driving factor to restrict the use of chemicals and products has the same effect of a de facto ban on the chemistry without taking all the relevant science into consideration. Notably, if there are processes that are already in place that New York could use to facilitate risk-based procurement decisions, I think they should be utilized. A few examples are the New York legislation that's focused on chemical products, which laid out a framework for identifying high-priority chemicals, taking action on those chemicals, and making specific decisions based on risk assessment science. Or if there are risk or safety determinations that have been made by federal agencies like EPA or FDA, then that information, I think, should also be taken in consideration. From my perspective, it seems particularly important that any procurement specifications actually align with any state or other federal science policy or regulatory issues. I had previously submitted some detailed comments on formaldehyde, and I appreciate the committee incorporating some of those changes. I think, as you guys are aware, formaldehyde is a basic building block chemistry utilizing the production of adhesive, composite wood products, and textiles. It's also used as a preservative and a disinfectant, antimicrobial agent, and it's also used in vaccines. All of those uses have been reviewed and approved where needed by relevant federal agencies. I have just a couple of quick comments that would help strengthen, I think, the current specifications. First, the committee accepted comments on formaldehyde to remove language listed as an asthmagen in the adhesive specification, but that language still exists in other specifications, so we ask that that be revised and removed from all the other specifications as well. Secondly, while we appreciate the committee adding the reference to EPA's composite wood products rule related to the floor covering and ensuring that they comply with that rule, it seems counterintuitive for the agency to continue to keep the language on page 10 that encourages entities to select flooring that contain no intentionally added formaldehyde. The main goal of EPA's finalized rule was to minimize hazardous exposures from formaldehyde emitted from composite wood products. Given this, any flooring that meets those composite wood standards should be allowed to be used in any procurement. Thirdly, the floor covering specifically also recommends selecting flooring that does not contain formaldehyde as an antimicrobial agent. I mentioned before that those uses have been reviewed and approved as warranted, and so I recommend revising that specification to allow any antimicrobial agent which has been approved by FIFA or other federal statutes to be allowed to be used in the procurement. And then just finally, from a general process standpoint, it would be extremely beneficial moving forward if the committee offered some type of listserv that would alert interested parties about upcoming meetings, the postings of new or proposed specifications, and if that information could also be posted at least 7 days in advance of the meeting so that stakeholders have time to review the information and provide comments. So again, appreciate this opportunity to provide these comments, and I'll be happy to address any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. Sahar, you're unmuted now. Go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Sahar Osman Seifer, and I'm a director with the American Chemistry Council. I manage the panels at ACC that represent the U.S. manufacturers of the aromatic and aliphatic diisocyanates. My comments pertain to the adhesive specs, which encourage affected entities to purchase general construction and flooring adhesives which do not contain diisocyanates. We were disappointed that none of our comments were addressed when the adhesive specs were reintroduced for a vote. We continue to believe that the committee is unjustifiably deselecting these products and strongly oppose this proposal. Diisocyanates are used to manufacture a variety of important applications that citizens of New York rely on every day. Examples of applications that would fall within the scope of the adhesive specs include roofing adhesives, window sealants, adhesives for parquet or wood flooring, as well as any project building where you would need to bond two or more substrates together. These disocyanate-based adhesives provide strong bonding and tight seals critical to the high-performance materials needed for building and construction applications. While not the immediate focus of these specs, disocyanates are also instrumental in the manufacture of many healthcare products to combat COVID. Examples of products include the nose foam and the N95 masks, the mattress and hospital beds, the seats and wheelchairs, the coatings on medical tubing and catheters, as well as many other critical applications. I would like to reiterate a few comments previously submitted. One is that disocyanates are identified in the specs as potential chemicals to avoid based on their listing by AOEC as asthmagens. Because a chemical is an asthmagen is not in and of itself a scientifically valid reason to ban its use. The more relevant and meaningful issue to consider is risk. In fact, the most recent data available from the demonstrates the risks of occupational asthma associated with disocyanates. The work-related asthma statistics indicate that despite their long-standing use in many applications, disocyanates are not in the top 10 frequently reported. The CDC data shows that for the state of New York, in particular, there were only 3 cases reported over the years of 2009 to 2009. Second point I wanted to make is that although disocyanates is a component in adhesives and other building products, once the products are fully cured, the available data shows there is no exposure potential to the disocyanates used to manufacture the final product. As quoted by EPA in the chemical action plans, quote, completely cured products are fully reacted and therefore considered to be inert and non-toxic, end quote. In addition, during application, the exposure to disocyanates and adhesives is minimal or even below modern detection limits, as shown in various studies already submitted. In short, the studies evaluated airborne concentrations of disocyanates and adhesives during exaggerated or worst-case exposure conditions and found that exposures were well below the limit of analytical detection and well below the OSHA permissible exposure limit of 20 parts per billion. An assessment of disocyanates conducted by the Government of Canada came to the same conclusion, that exposures are expected to be low or negligible with regards to adhesives applications. One final note, it's also been documented in peer-reviewed journals that a peak exposure, usually above 20 parts per billion, is needed to develop occupational asthma. Therefore, we question the accuracy and basis for the committee's statement that disocyanates are well documented in the scientific literature as an asthmagen present in adhesives. So in conclusion, I respectfully urge the committee to remove reference of disocyanates in the adhesive specifications for the reasons articulated here and in past comments. And I thank you for the opportunity to provide the comments.
Thank you, Sahar. Sean Swearingen.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. I'm an opportunity to comment. Sound come over okay?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Interagency Committee on Sustainability and Green Procurement. My name is Sean Swearingen, and I'm a director with the American Chemistry Council. I manage and represent the Alliance for Telemer Chemistry Stewardship, ATCS. The ATCS mission is to promote the responsible production, use, and stewardship of fluoropolymer-based products, while also advocating for sound science and a risk-based approach to regulation. My comments pertain to the floor covering specifications. We were disappointed that none of our comments were addressed when the floor covering specifications were amended, even when considering removing typos and edits. I continue to believe that the committee is unjustifiably deselecting these products from the state purchases and procurement procedures, and strongly oppose this proposal as arbitrary and capricious. Today, during the Interagency Committee's final hearing, the industry is asking again to reevaluate the science behind and the procedure of the state's own regulatory process. Any products that contain PFAs and flame retardants will not be allowed to be purchased by the New York government agencies, despite substantial evidence in opposition to this committee's position. Deselecting of products based on a hazard-only principle is not in line with New York's own regulatory framework that was recently amended to determine high priority chemicals based on the best available risk assessment. Not only that, many of the decisions that are being made to do not match assessments made by the United States agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency and Food and Drug Administration. Additionally, the process and timing by which that committee has held their meetings have made it extremely difficult to present industry's comments and scientific evidence in a timely fashion when the written comments have not been considered by the committee. C6 fluorotelmer-based products manufactured by members and currently use have been thoroughly reviewed by regulators prior to the introduction into commerce. These substances must meet relevant environmental, health, and safety regulatory standards and have to undergo significant regulatory scrutiny before being brought to market, including substantial testing requirements. In the U.S., these substances have been reviewed under the new Chemicals Review Program of the Toxic Substances Control Act with specific testing requirements related to cancer, reproductive developmental factors, systematic toxicity, retention, ecological endpoints, environmental fate, transport, and other factors. As part of our commitment to stewardship, we have conducted rigorous analysis of our C6 fluorotelmer-based products that demonstrates they do not present a significant risk to human health or the environment. This assessment also includes review of potential breakdown degradation products. The overwhelming weight of scientific evidence indicates that the primary potential breakdown product, PFHXA or C6 acid, does not cause cancer, does not disrupt endocrine activity, has not been shown to cause reproductive or developmental harm, does not build up in the human body, and does not become concentrated in the bodies of living organisms. We hope that the Interagency Committee on Sustainability and Green Procurement will take a step back and reevaluate these specifications before finalizing them. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you, Sean. All right, that is it for public comment. If I missed anyone, which I don't think I did, send me a note in the chat box. So, okay, great. We are way behind. So we're going to move right into the subcommittee reports. Brendan and Jody for the Operations and Engagement Subcommittee. Please keep it short. We're really under a squeeze here. Go ahead.
Yep, thank you, Darren. First off, I'd just like to thank Beth for the kind words earlier. Hers are some big shoes to fill, but she set up a really good groundwork for us going forward, and I'm very appreciative for everything she's done for this committee and for sustainability and state government in general. Quick update from the Operations and Engagement Subcommittee. We released our public report in August, the Green New York report that talks about sustainability initiatives in state government and some of our progress. A couple quick things from that. In fiscal year 2018-19 alone, energy efficiency measures adopted by state agencies have saved $65 million, and they've reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 293 tons. Pertaining to green procurement, the report also found that New York spent $114 million on green products and services in fiscal year 2018-2019, helping to drive the market towards greener products. In addition, we usually hold our annual Green Year Commute Day event in May, but due to COVID, we ended up holding our Car Free for Climate event back in September. It was a little modified, but it was still a big success. And we also held our annual Green New York Forum yesterday, where we brought together sustainability coordinators from all across state government to network, share best practices, and learn about our initiatives going forward. So we've got a lot going on. We've had a lot of success, and we're looking forward to the future. Thanks, Darren.
All right, thank you, Brendan. Next is the reporting subcommittee. Frank, go ahead. I think you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Hey, Darren, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Glad to be here. My name's Frank Champa. I'm at NYSERDA, and I'm Program Manager for Policy Development and the Chair of the Reporting Subcommittee. Happy to report out that we are are busy. We have, as Brendan mentioned, just recently wrapped up publication of the annual Green New York public report. We have been working with agencies to actually get them to provide information that we can analyze related to the next fiscal year of activity, so fiscal year 1920, looking at all the different ways that agencies are moving ahead with their various sustainability initiatives and tried to encourage great progress and cross-collaboration among agencies, all working towards a common goal. That's short but sweet, so happy to answer any questions.
Again, if anybody has any question, anybody on the committee has any questions, go ahead and I don't know. I think there's a raise your hand feature if I see that, but you can just send a chat box question. So I don't see anything. Thanks, Frank. I'm muting you. Just want to note one thing. Bob Rossi, I'm going to unmute you for a second. I think it came across that you said you're with the Business Council, but if you could actually say who you're from, what organization. If you're still around. Sorry if you're not. Anyway, my understanding is Bob Rossi is with the Sustainable Business Council. Go ahead.
I just heard that, yeah.
Oh, anyway, don't worry about it. I don't think Bob's looking at this. Anyway, Bob is with the Sustainable Business Council, not the Business Council. I think that got garbled or was misunderstood. So next we have the Green Procurement Subcommittee report. Todd, if you would like to run through that real quick.
Darren, sorry to interrupt. Was I called upon just a moment ago?
Oh, Bob, yeah, sorry. So there was a little misunderstanding. I think it came across when you said what organization you were with that it sounded like the Business Council, but I think it's actually the Sustainable Business Council. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not the Business Council of New York. We're the New York Sustainable Business Council.
Got it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay. Sorry, where was I? Todd, you are unmuted, so go ahead real quick, please.
Thanks, Darren. The Green Procurement Program continues to expand its all green contract offerings with the release of a new contract for community solar earlier this year. And we now have about 10 all green contracts, including environmentally preferable cleaning products, environmentally preferable lighting. We have 2 contracts for recycled copy paper. We have a contract for compostable cafeteria trays, computers, electric vehicle charging stations, and 3 contracts for solar, including 1 for PV systems, 1 for solar power purchase agreements, and the contract for community solar that I mentioned earlier. So in addition, we're also continuing to incorporate the Green New York icon into the e-marketplace in order to help purchasers find products that meet the EO4 specifications. And the icon is now in use on the environmentally preferable cleaning products contract, environmentally preferable lighting contract, recycled copy paper contracts, and green products offered by New York State preferred sources. So moving forward over the next year, we're planning to expand our offerings for community solar, develop a new contract for reusable, recyclable, and compostable dishware, and to continue to expand the use of the Green New York icon. So we look forward to making further progress over the next year in green purchasing.
All right, thanks, Todd. All right, we're about 30 minutes behind, but I think we can do this. Now to the review of the tentatively approved specifications that have been posted for public comment for final approval. If your screen just went gray, I think our Chloe Whitaker, our legal assistant, has helped me out with this, and she's going to put up the specs or the comments and responses summaries as they come up. So just at the top, I just want to say that a lot of these specs, committee members, you may recall, were introduced as draft specs in 2018. They were tentatively approved and posted for public comment for a year. In 2019, in the lead up to that meeting in April of 2019, we had numerous meetings with several of the folks who commented today, as well as other industry, the American Chemistry Council, Resilient Floor Coverings Institute, and other industry. Extensive edits were made based on much of their comments, and comments as they came in. They were amended to such an extent that we felt we should reintroduce them as new draft specs, which they were in 2019. Again, posted for public comments. Again, comments were received. We had many meetings, several meetings, I should say, with those groups again. Less extensive edits were made, and then and COVID went crazy in April, and this meeting got postponed. And comments have been actually flying in as recently as this morning. I just wanted to give a little overview of the process that the committee members here probably remember. Also, before getting into it, I just wanted to say that in addition to the comments that you've heard verbally, we received about 40 written comments from both industry and environmental groups, other associations, as well as several states, on both sides of these specifications and the process itself. So I would want to just get into some of the global concerns that were discussed in some of the comments, and I'm going to ask Beth to also say something just as an explanatory measure. So a lot of the comments, you may have heard the term ban referred to. I just want to reiterate for the committee, anybody watching, that the green specifications that are proposed today for the Interagency Committee to vote on pursuant to Executive Order 4 affects state procurement only. The green procurement specifications in no way constitute a ban on products. They do not regulate or prohibit the sale of products that fail to meet these requirements. Instead, they're market-based. They use the power of state purchasing to send a signal to the market to create an incentive for manufacturers to develop high-performing green products that are safer and more efficient, perform well, and are competitive in overall cost to those conventional products. Beth, the other term I felt like might need some explaining to the Interagency Committee because it's kind of a technical term. We heard the words hazard and risk analysis, hazard and risk analysis or approach. So Beth, Mir, if you just want to explain very, very quickly and briefly to the committee what those terms mean, generally speaking, please do.
Sure. Thanks, Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I have cut down my remarks a bit, but I am a bit of a wonk. I will try my best. So this recurrent argument is made that hazard alone, i.e. the potential for a chemical to cause cancer or another disease, is not sufficient to require or encourage agencies to avoid the purchase of a product containing that chemical. Instead, these commenters argue, risk must be taken into account, i.e. the potential for the use of the specific product to result in an unacceptable level of disease in the population. Hazard is the scientifically documented potential to cause disease, such as cancer, reproductive damage, endocrine disruption, or asthma. The chemicals New York Green Procurement Program seeks to avoid when purchasing products are known or probable carcinogens, reproductive toxins, endocrine disruptors, or adjuncts. As I'll explain further in a second, hazard is the appropriate and widely applied standard for market-based pollution prevention initiatives like green procurement. Unacceptable risk has historically been the basis for chemical regulation and outright bans. Risk is a combination of hazard and exposure. In arguing that this standard be the bar for green procurement, a number of commenters, and notably the American Chemistry Council, are arguing that it is not enough for state purchasers to avoid the purchase of a product which contains a known carcinogen. Instead, they would require the state to prove that the use of that specific product will result in an unacceptable number of people getting cancer in order to justify directing state purchasers to avoid it. Ironically, if the state could prove that a certain level of a chemical in a specific product poses unacceptable risk, that evidence would warrant imposing an actual regulatory ban or other restriction on the sale of that chemical or product in commerce. Historically, there have been two broad types of action used by government to address hazardous chemicals: regulatory restrictions or bans, and pollution prevention. Regulatory restrictions or bans have historically relied on scientific evidence of hazard plus quantitative exposure data to determine unacceptable risk. The most prominent example of this approach is the Federal Toxic Substances Control Act, passed in 1976, which is widely viewed as seriously flawed. Only 4 chemicals have been banned under the program in 40 years. Significant reforms to TSCA were enacted by Congress, by both Republicans and Democrats in 2016, just prior to the presidential election. But the Trump administration's implementation of those reforms has also been widely criticized. Partly in response to the weakness of TSCA, the Federal Pollution Prevention Act was enacted in 1990. It explicitly calls on government entities to pursue green procurement. The Federal Environmentally Preferable Purchasing Program was launched in 1993 to meet the mandate given to EPA in the Federal P2 Act to, quote, identify opportunities to use federal procurement to encourage source reduction. The Pollution Prevention Act defines source reduction to mean any practice which reduces the amount of any hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant entering any waste stream or otherwise released into the environment prior to recycling, treatment, or disposal, and reduces the hazards to public health and the environment associated with the release of such substances, pollutants, or contaminants. Note the emphasis on hazard. The term includes equipment or technology modifications and very clearly the reformulation or design of products. EPA's website explains that their EPP purchasing program, quote, leverages the significant federal purchasing power to prevent pollution, realize life cycle cost savings, and increase U.S. industry competitiveness. The EPP program at EPA includes the Safer Choice program, which certifies and labels products so that consumers can easily choose ones that are safer for people and the environment. The program is exclusively focused on the hazards of chemicals, not risk. EPA's green procurement programs continued through the Trump administration and include the identification of close to 1,000 safer ingredients and the certification of more than 2,000 products. All of the green product and green building certifications that have been developed over the past 30 years and which are relied on by New York State's green procurement program rely on hazard, not risk. These certification programs, including Green Seal, UL Eco Logo, EP, and LEED, are well known to members of this committee. In sum, green procurement is a well-established market-based approach to pollution prevention. It depends on the availability of safer alternatives. It rewards innovation and drives market evolution while avoiding the harsh disruptions of outright bans or restrictions on commerce. In fact, it gives the market a signal well in advance of regulation that they may need to change their products. It is good for business. Green product design and a strong economy go hand in hand. Thanks, Darren. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Todd, we're for computer and displays.
Thanks, Darren. So just to give a little background, in April of 2019, the existing desktop and laptop computer specification was amended to align it with new EPEAT standards that were issued in 2019. And the resulting amended specification was released by the Interagency Committee as a tentative specification. So the computers and displays specification has been around since 2008, and it was amended in April of 2019. And comments on the specification were received from the American Chemistry Council's North American Flame Retardant Alliance, requesting changes to the disclosure of flame retardants section. And they requested that the specification be amended to reduce the scope of the encouragement for bidders to provide an explanation of their efforts to replace halogenated flame retardants with other chemistries to only penta, octa, and deca BDE. And they also requested removing the encouragement for bidders to offer products that flame retardant standards without using flame retardant chemicals. We also received late comments from the Information Technology Industry Council regarding the disclosure of flame retardant section. They also had comments on the use of the EPEAT standards and the model packaging section. So in response to the comments, we would note that halogenated flame retardants as a class pose numerous hazards and are a legitimate focus of green procurement. We would also note that this language for the disclosure of flame retardants has been in the original specification since 2008 and has not caused a hardship to either purchasers or suppliers, and that it is merely an encouragement for bidders responding to solicitations to provide information and offer products that meet flame retardancy standards without using added chemicals. The language does not ban or prohibit flame retardants in any way. Similarly, the language in the packaging section is an encouragement for the use of bulk and reusable packaging in order to reduce the amount of waste sent to landfills. And this language has also not resulted in a hardship for any purchasers or suppliers. Finally, the EPEAT standard has been a requirement in the specification since 2008 and has also not caused a hardship. And we would note that this standard is a strong third-party certification program.
Todd. Okay, looks like we lost Todd. Well, that's the first technical glitch we've had here today. Hopefully Todd can jump back on. So with that, I'm going to ask the members, Brendan, Brian Hahn, Matthew Haas, if you've joined, Heather Saunders, Jody Smith-Anderson, Carrie Jane King, Emma Davis, Jessica DePrima, and John G. Unmute, and if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. And if not, I am going to ask you to unmute.
If not, I am going to ask you to unmute.
And I am now going to say, all in favor, please say aye.
And I'm now going to say, all in favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Yes.
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say no. Great, thank you very much. Please unmute, or I mean, please mute again. And Todd is having some trouble, so I guess his WebEx froze up. So we're going to jump right into floor coverings because Todd is also presenting on the next two, adhesives and lubricants. So for floor coverings, let's have Christina Campo Christina, go ahead, please. Unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, great. So to give a little brief background on this specification, the Interagency Committee first approved this specification tentatively in April 2018. It is an expansion of the carpet and carpet tile specification, which is approved. And it was first, that specification in particular was first adopted in 2014. This in particular covers a wider array of floor covering options. This specification was released again for tentative approval in 2019, went through a comment period, and we received a lot of comments once again, and now it is up for final approval. The specification establishes a floor coverings hierarchy. It requires agencies to avoid floor coverings containing PFAS chemicals and halogenated chemicals like PVC and flame retardants, and encourages agencies to purchase from entities that have a strong take-back program. So the purple text is newly revised. The red text is text that was approved tentatively in 2019. So I'm just going to go through the purple text, and some of it is just grammar modifications. Some of it just updates, links, and certification standards and certifications and standard settings. So the purple text here for polyvinyl chloride, this just updates the definition of PVC a little bit to make it a bit more accurate in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, we updated the definition to remove phthalates, so that it reflects that phthalates are no longer a plasticizer in the manufacture of new PVC. And then I'm just going to scroll here 1 second.
You can't scroll, but Chloe, can you scroll?
Yeah, right here. Oh. I think, sorry about that. Yes, that's correct. Okay. We updated the definition again, or here for orthophthalates, just also to reflect that these are no longer being used in the manufacture of new PVC products. Once again, we updated PVC here in the definitions section to further kind of drive the point home there that phthalates are no longer being used as a plasticizer in the manufacture of new PVC products, also known as vinyl flooring for purposes of this specification. The updated definition here for resilient flooring was a request from the Resilient Floor Covering Institute to include that it is produced in sheet and tile formats. We added under the standard setting and certifying programs here, we added definition for California Air Resources Board airborne toxin control measure to reduce formaldehyde emissions from composite wood products, and that's also just known as CARB. I'm just going to scroll through just the minor changes that are just very grammatical. We added a definition for the USDA Bio-Preferred Program, which I'll go over when we get to that part of the spec. We also added a definition for the EPA formaldehyde emission standards, which is basically the same as the CARB standard that I referenced above. So this is the specifications section. These are just minor. Okay, so this section actually goes through the hierarchy of preferred flooring materials. We prefer linoleum, solid wood, and rubber or cork flooring first, and then if those are not feasible to be procured, we then go on to encouraging procurement of bio-based flooring, and in here we added in that preference for USDA bio-preferred if that route is going to be taken, which was a definition that we included above for that. And then the rest of these kind of just go through the hierarchy. We updated this section here, which says affected entities shall, to the maximum extent practicable, avoid the procurement of flooring products containing PVC, and recycled chrome rubber. We just made that language a bit more clear in that section there. For our section 2, under all floor coverings, we added in a required standard and third-party certification for the 2019 edition of NSF ANSI 140 at its gold level. We threw that in there so that carpet could have an option. Quickly going through. We updated the links here. Some of these were becoming outdated since this spec had been tentative for a couple years. Some of the links had just been updated, so we added in those links so that they would be updated. In this section here, we would like products to be selected that are 100% recyclable, so that they can be recycled at the end of life, but we would also like to go above and beyond and request that those products be purchased by manufacturers that have a third-party take-back program that is verified, so that when you do get to the end of life with that product, you can actually get it back to the manufacturer and have them take it back and dispose of it properly. LEED updated their rating system, so we just included that the latest version had been changed to 100 miles as opposed to 500 miles from the project site. This section
We're getting seriously short on time, Christina. Sorry, but try to go fast.
Okay. The section here has an addition of the EPA formaldehyde emission standard, which is equal to the CARB standard. This section here encourages that our wood materials come from forest lands that are participating in an acceptable certification system. We change that to a strong encouragement as opposed to a requirement, because 17% of the forests in New York State are currently certified at the moment, and we would like to push for our wood products to be harvested in New York State on the local level. And we also work with the Climate Advisory Panel about sourcing our wood products locally and ensuring that they're grown, harvested, and manufactured in New York State, because this is a really, really important carbon sequestration initiative in New York State, and that's a big reason for doing that. And I think that's really the major points there for the specification. So since we have to get through this quickly, I will wrap up and say we are all set on that one.
Great, thank you. So before we consider that, Todd is back on, so I just want to give anybody an opportunity, if they, any of the committee members, if you have a question for Todd about the computers and display, go ahead and ask now. No, okay. All right. Then I will say that, does anybody have a question for Christina regarding the floor covering spec she just went over? Anybody on the committee?
No, no questions. I just want to commend her for the amount of work she's done on this spec, and it's really impressive pulling all of this together. So thank you very much, Christina.
Okay, and does anyone want to move to consider this spec?
Yep, I'll motion that. This is Brendan.
It's Jody.
Okay, thanks, Jody, for the second. And all right, again, please unmute if you can. When I ask, all in favor, say aye or yes.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Please unmute and say no. All right, great. Thank you very much. Todd has joined us again. So we need to go at light speed here, Todd, and we're going to do the adhesives specification. Go ahead, Todd.
Okay, thank you, Darren. The new specification for adhesives was tentatively approved by the Interagency Committee in April of 2018. And based on comments received during the first comment period, it was revised and re-released for a second comment period in April of 2019. The specification is an encouragement. It does not ban or prohibit any products or chemistries. It simply encourages purchasers to consider products that are more environmentally friendly. So during the second comment period, we received comments from the American Chemistry Council on the use of formaldehyde as an example of an asthmagen, the use of thiocyanates as an example of an asthmagen, and the use of hazard-based lists. We also received late comments from several companies that largely mirrored those comments, but also raised a question about whether or not roofing adhesives were covered by the spec. So in response to these comments regarding formaldehyde, the ACC provided references indicating that formaldehyde may not be an asthmagen and requesting that it not be included as an example. And after reviewing the references, we found that the science around whether or not formaldehyde is an asthmagen is still evolving. And although it is a known carcinogen and should be avoided in green purchasing, its use as an example of an asthmagen is not settled, and the specification should be amended to remove it as an example of an asthmagen. The ACC also requested that thiocyanates be removed as an example of an asthmagen. However, in this case, we note that thiocyanates appear on the AEOC list of asthmagens, and that the AEOC list is an authoritative list with a long history of use in New York State and by independent third-party certification programs. And so for these reasons, we feel that the use of thiocyanates as an example of an asthmagen is appropriate, and our recommendation is to retain the language as it is. The ACC also requested that hazard-based lists not be used in the specification, and instead suggested that each chemistry should be evaluated for human health risks. But as explained by Beth, we have found that the use of hazard-based lists is appropriate for green procurement. And so we recommend retaining the language recommending that the use of hazard-based lists be used in the spec. So regarding adhesives for exterior applications, we note that the specification primarily focuses on indoor applications, but that outdoor applications are not specifically excluded. And so the specification encourages purchasers to consider safer alternatives for those applications as well. So to summarize, Based on the comments received, we recommend that the specification be amended to remove formaldehyde as an example of an asthmagen, and that it be approved by the committee without any other changes.
All right, great. Thank you, Todd. Are there any questions from the committee members for Todd with regard to the piece of specification? All right, not hearing any. Does anybody from the committee want to consider the adhesive specification?
Yeah, I'll motion that.
Okay, I heard multiple there, so that's a second. And so again, please, committee members, unmute, and if you're in favor of approving the adhesive spec, say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Thanks very much. If anyone's opposed, please unmute and say no. All right, hearing none, consider that approved. Thank you very much. The next is the lubricants specification. Todd, go ahead and present them, please.
Thank you, Darren. The new specification for lubricants was also tentatively approved by the Interagency Committee in April of 2018. And based on comments received, it was revised and re-released in April of 2019 for additional public comments. This specification is also an encouragement. It does not ban or prohibit products or chemistries. During the second comment period, comments were received from the American Chemistry Council on the use of formaldehyde as an example of an asthmagen, on the background information on short-chain PFAS, and on the avoidance of products containing polymer PFAS, and also on the use of hazard-based lists. So regarding formaldehyde, similar to the adhesive spec, the ACC provided references indicating that it may not be an asthmagen. And so we agree that the issue is not settled and that we should remove formaldehyde as an example of an asthmagen. The ACC also requested that the background information on the potential dangers of short-chain PFAS chemicals be removed. However, we have found that concerns about short-chain PFAS are valid and appropriate to address through green procurement. And we note that the National Institute of Health Substances of Concern database points out that while shorter chain PFCs may be less toxic than long chain PFCs, there is a lack of data, and they are similarly structured. So using them as an alternative to longer chain PFCs could result in a regrettable substitution. The NIH recommends reduction strategies that include selecting products that do not contain PFCs. In addition, the Washington State Department of Ecology and Health documented concerns about short-chain PFCs in a 2018 report, including stating that they are extremely persistent, tend to be water soluble, move more easily through soil to contaminate groundwater, and are difficult to filter out of drinking water. Based on this information and the appropriateness of green procurement to address these areas of emerging concern, we have found that the background information on PFAS is appropriate and should be retained. In addition, the ACC also commented on the avoidance of products containing polymer PFAS and requested that positive language on polymer PFAS be added to the specification. Specifically, the polymer PFAS PTFE. However, we note that PTFE was one of the polymer PFAS chemicals manufactured at the St. Gobain facility in Hoosick Falls that resulted in contamination of drinking water with long-chain PFAS chemicals. And while it appears that PFOA is no longer used in the manufacture of PTFE, short-chain PFAS chemicals are, and because of concerns about short-chain PFAS, we recommend that the existing language be retained. And finally, the ACC also requested that hazard-based lists not be used in the specification, and instead that each chemistry should be evaluated for human health risk. And so after reviewing this request, as explained by Beth, we have found that the use of hazard-based lists is appropriate for green procurement. And so we recommend that the use of the hazard-based list be retained in the specification. So to summarize, we recommend that the specification be amended to remove formaldehyde as an example of an asthmagen, and that the specification be approved by the committee without any other changes.
All right, thank you, Todd. Are there any questions for Todd from committee members? Okay, would anybody like to move to consider the lubricant specification?
Yep, I'll motion to that.
All right, thanks. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, members, please unmute, and if you're in favor of approval of the lubricant spec, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Is anyone opposed to approving the lubricant spec? Please unmute and say no. Hearing none, lubricant spec is approved. Thanks very much, and thank you, Todd. And while Todd is here, again, there was some confusion when he dropped off during the computer and displays spec. So just to make sure that everybody is on the same page here, does anybody, we're going to have a revote on that. Does anybody want to move to consider the computers and display spec that Todd presented on earlier?
I move.
Yep, I'll move to that.
All right, thank you. And I heard Jody, so that's a second. So members, please unmute and say aye or yes if you're in favor of approval of the computers and displays specification.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And please unmute and say no if you're opposed to approving computers and displays. All right, great. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're going to go into a review of new specifications for tentative approval. If these are approved, they will be posted on the Green New York website, which is hosted by OGS, on the OGS public website. They'll be posted for public comment. If comments are received, they will stay up for however long till the next time you guys meet, which hopefully will be in April 2021. And I'm going to skip the sustainable swag guidance to the end because that's not really a spec you have to approve. And we're really running short on time here. So let's get into the apparel draft specification, which is a new one for you guys to see. So go ahead, please, Melissa.
Sure. So for the apparel and raw textile materials specification, a little bit of background. Agencies had inquired about guidance for purchasing more sustainable apparel. So we researched sustainable standards as well as their market availability, and we spoke to state agencies to survey types of apparel and the textiles that they purchase. We talked to preferred sources about what they make and procure, as well as options for introducing sustainable products. As far as speaking with and working with Corecraft and Docs, we toured the Kisaki Correctional Facility to see how Corecraft makes apparel, and this is why we chose to include raw textiles in the spec, since they create their apparel from bulk textiles, and this apparel is then used by state agencies. The goal of the spec is to address not only the clothing articles purchased, but also source reduction, proper care and laundering, and proper end-of-life care. The encouraged third-party certification support waste reduction, supply chain transparency, and ethical sourcing and manufacturing. The covered products of this spec are any apparel or raw textile materials. Agency shall, to the maximum extent practicable, as long as it meets the agency's form, function, and utility, limit the purchase of apparel and textiles to the least amount needed to carry out agency's missions. The materials may not contain cotton sourced from Uzbekistan or Turkmenistan due to the nationwide ban and because of forced labor practices. No added antimicrobial or anti-odor agents, and are not labeled as dry clean only except for formal law enforcement uniforms when no alternatives are available. The spec follows a holistic hierarchical approach to its recommendations that some of our recent specs have also followed. So our encouragements for this specification are that the product does not contain intentionally added PFCs, are produced with recycled content, are produced with recycled cotton, organic cotton, and carry one or more of the following third-party certifications. The majority of these third-party certifications, which you can see on the screen, are holistic and some are single attribute. So we encourage the agencies to look for items that might contain more than one, for example, fair trade as well as responsible down. Another encouragement is that it limits the amount of packaging that the item comes in, and it must meet the packaging language at the end of the specification. Avoid the purchase of apparel embroidered or decorated with a special or date-specific logo or any clothing that can be worn within a specific time period only. Care encouragements include laundering using detergents that meet the laundry detergent specification, and only dry cleaned if absolutely necessary, and ensure all cleaning is done in compliance with the garment cleaning specification. As far as end-of-life encouragements, if the item is still in useful condition, it should be put back into circulation to facilitate reuse by other agency employees until it is no longer in a useful condition. When the item is no longer in useful condition, it should be recycled in a textile recycling program. As far as the disposal of law enforcement apparel, follow agency procedures for end-of-life care of law enforcement apparel. Reuse the fabric from law enforcement apparel for other applications, such as maintenance rags, and recycle the remaining fabric from law enforcement apparel in a textile recycling program. For raw textile material, end-of-life management for extra and unusable pieces of raw and textile materials, remake them into other useful apparel or items and recycle them. And market availability, survey of the market shows that third-party certifications on many types of apparel, we have been seeing more and more brands and items adding these certifications since we began development of the spec at the beginning of the year. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Okay, again, this is a draft spec. If approved, it'll be posted for public comment, and you guys will consider it, hopefully next time you meet. So are there any questions for Melissa from committee members? Okay, so would anybody like to move to consider the apparel and textile materials spec?
I'll motion for that.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. All right, please, members, please unmute and say aye or yes if you approve the apparel and textile materials draft spec for posting for public comment.
Aye.
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 Thanks very much. Is anybody opposed? If so, please unmute and say no. All right, terrific. Thank you very much. We will post the apparel and textile materials specification for public comment. Next is the garment cleaning draft specification up for tentative approval. Brendan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. So as the group started working on the apparel specification, we realized that there was more to apparel than just purchasing it itself. So we wanted to make sure that we went into all parts of the life cycle. So you heard in that spec that there were some end-of-life care things. We also wanted to get into the cleaning of the garment as well. So that's how we started working on a garment cleaning specification. This also came out of the work that was done to create a sector-specific track for DEC's New York Green Business Programs. We were building upon the work that was done there. The group worked with DEC's Division of Air Resources and the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute to find out where the garment cleaning market is now in terms of best available technology and the availability of technology kind of by regions of the state. In addition, when we were developing the Green Business Program spec, we spoke with garment cleaners and also did a tour of a facility to see these different technologies in action. So we also looked at state government's use of garment cleaning services, and while we didn't find any kind of large-scale purchases of this service, we learned that some law enforcement employees receive a union stipend to have their uniforms cleaned. Other law enforcement officers also have their formal uniforms professionally cleaned, even if they do pay for that out of pocket. So we saw the creation and adoption of this specification as both a way to ensure that any potential future state garment cleaning services are done in a more environmentally friendly manner, while also creating an educational tool and guidance for state staff that do utilize garment cleaning services for uniforms and things like that. The spec itself does three things. It recommends avoiding PERC. That is the first thing that it does. It also sets out a recommended hierarchy of preferred professional cleaning methods. The first is wet cleaning, if it's available in someone's region, then CO2 cleaning, which there's not a lot of yet, but it's becoming a little bit more prevalent. And then third is cleaning using a New York State approved alternative solvent. In addition, to make it holistic, we say that state entities need to recycle any recyclables such as plastic film bags that might be generated from the process. And we also encourage them to find other ways to reduce waste, such as programs like reusing hangers and reusable bag programs.
All right. Does anybody on the committee have any questions for Brendan on this specification? All right. Okay, so would anybody like to move to consider the garment cleaning spec for tentative approval and public posting?
I will.
Can I motion on the spec that there we go.
Thank you. And anybody second?
Jody.
Okay. Thanks, Jody. All right. All in favor, please unmute and say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Anyone's opposed to tentative approval of the garment cleaning spec, please unmute and say no. Right, hearing none, the garment cleaning spec is tentatively approved and will be posted for public comment. Thanks very much. Next is the laundry detergent draft specification. Brendan, go ahead.
Yep, so this one also comes out of our kind of apparel universe here. We wanted to make sure that we also covered what we're cleaning the clothes with. So this is part of that holistic approach. And this works both for laundry detergent that's purchased and used directly by agencies at their facilities. It also provides a specification that agencies can use when they're contracting out for laundry services to let vendors know what type of detergent they want to make sure they're using a more sustainable option on the clothing and linens that they're responsible for. So we did a critical analysis of the third-party certification programs that are out there for laundry detergent. Important things that we look for are the same as what they normally are. We're looking for an independent verification of claims. We're looking for market coverage, and we're looking for kind of a holisticness if we can find that, although there are single attribute ones out there as well. We surveyed which agencies are purchasing laundry detergent and where they're purchasing it from. We also surveyed the availability of laundry detergents on state contract and from preferred sources to make sure that agencies are able to find these alternatives and purchase them in the most easy manner. In addition, we worked with CoreCraft on this initiative as well. As Melissa mentioned earlier, we had worked with them on the apparel spec too. They've been a great partner in these initiatives. We also surveyed the market for attributes beyond just the content of the detergent itself. We also wanted to look for ways that agencies could potentially lower greenhouse gas emissions from shipping, reduced waste from packaging, and also ensure that it's used correctly and in the correct amount so state agencies are not spending more than they have to on this particular item. So the specification itself, it encourages agencies to purchase laundry detergents in bulk to the maximum extent practical to reduce packaging waste. It requires agencies to purchase laundry detergent that complies with all New York State laws surrounding laundry detergent. And agencies also, to the maximum extent practical, are asked to purchase laundry detergents that carry either Green Seal, GS51, or UL Eco Logo ULE2776, or both. Those are holistic specifications. In addition, we also ask them to look for detergents that might also carry cradle-to-cradle and or USDA bio-based. We also encourage agencies to use dispensing systems that can make sure that only the proper amount needed is used. And then we have our standard packaging language in there as well.
All right, great. Thanks, Brendan. Do any members have any questions for Brendan about the laundry detergent specification? Okay. Would any members like to move to consider laundry detergent spec for tentative approval?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks very much. I heard multiple voices, so we got a second. Members, please unmute and say aye or yes if you're in favor of tentative approval for laundry detergent spec.
Aye.
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 All right, thanks very much. Please unmute and say no if you're opposed to tentative approval for laundry detergent. Right, not hearing any. Laundry detergent is tentatively approved, and that spec will be posted for public comment. Okay, the last of the draft specs to be considered is the coating removal products spec. And that is going to be presented by, I think, Melissa. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
All right.
Try to be super quick. So for coating removal, products, methylene chloride, referred to as MC, and N-methyl 2-pyrrolidone, referred to as NMP, are two of the most commonly used solvents in the coating removal products. However, these chemicals can be harmful to human health through both acute and chronic effects. The U.S. EPA has ruled for the removal of MC from consumer coating removal products and has released a draft risk evaluation for NMP. The California Department of Toxic Substances Control has also identified paint and varnish strippers containing MC as priority products and has proposed that paint and varnish strippers and graffiti removers containing NMP be priority products. The Massachusetts Toxics Reduction Institution at UMass Lowell, has researched and tested alternatives to MC and NMP in coating removal products. Turi found that there are safer and effective alternatives available on the market for consumer and commercial use. The covered products for this specification are coating removal products, including but not limited to those meant to remove paint, oil and latex-based, epoxy, shellac, lacquer, polyurethane, varnish, automotive, boat, bathtub, tile, asphalt and tar, and furniture coatings, as well as adhesives and graffiti. The spec does not include degreasers, floor coating remover products, or mechanical coating removal processes. We don't have enough information available on mechanical processes to determine if they are indeed a better alternative. All affected entities shall, to the maximum extent practicable, procure coating removal products that do not contain MC or NMP. All companies contracted to remove coatings on or in property owned by the state, such as facilities, fleet vehicles, watercraft, etc., shall use coating removal products that meet the requirements of this specification. Affected entities are encouraged to procure coating removal products with one of the following third-party certifications to the maximum extent practicable when procuring applicable products. Green Seal GS53 specialty cleaning products for industrial and institutional use, which covered adhesive and graffiti removers for industrial and institutional use. UL Eco Logo UL2767 paint and varnish remover, which covers all paint and varnish removers. Where products certified by one of the listed third-party certifications are not cost competitive or meet the form, function, and utility requirements, affected entities are encouraged to procure products that do not contain dimethylformamide, ethylbenzene, methanol, naphthalene, Stoddard solvent, toluene, or xylene, as our research showed that these are other potentially used solvents that may be similarly hazardous to MC and NMP. The market is quickly shifting away from products that contain MC and NMP, so these are widely available. And the certifications have a very small number of certified products, which is why there are only a few certifications. And there's no significant price difference. According to the findings in the Turi report, the average price for products containing MC and those with safer alternatives is nearly the same. And the market has replaced MC and NMP with similarly hazardous chemicals, which is why procuring products without any of the identified chemicals is an encouragement. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Members, does anybody have any questions for Melissa? Okay, does anybody want to move to consider tentative approval for coating removal products?
I'll move to that.
I move. I second.
Okay, thank you guys. Please unmute, members, and say aye or yes if you're in favor of tentative approval of coating removal products.
Aye.
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 Thank you. If anyone's opposed to tentative approval for coating removal products, please unmute and say no. All right, not hearing anything. Coating removal product specification is tentatively approved and will be posted for public comment. Thanks very much. The last thing on the agenda is just a very quick overview of some sustainable swag guidance that Emily Dominiak from DEC is going to talk about. And I don't know if anybody knows, but SWAG is an acronym that stands for Stuff We All Get.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. So another way to refer to SWAG is just giveaways. So it might seem like a foreign concept now, but earlier this year we put together this guidance, which is not meant to be a spec. It's just kind of informational for agencies on how to be more sustainable when you're giving away items at conferences or other events. And we recognize that these items might have value sometimes in terms of conveying the messaging and encouraging the audience to be continually engaged, but they definitely can have an outsized environmental impact when you think about the limited lifespan. So we put together 4 kind of steps to walk through for agencies to kind of green their giveaways. And first is only using or only giving away giveaways when they're absolutely necessary to convey the messaging. Second is that we encourage agencies to purchase only as much as they need and to collaborate with their procurement staff on exactly what and how much they want to buy. Third is to purchase more sustainable items and being mindful of what the item's made of, how it's packaged, and where it's shipped from. And then the last kind of step is to be mindful of how the giveaways are actually given away and make it more of a reward for an interaction instead of an incentive to have an interaction.
All right, great. Anybody have any questions for Emily? No? All right, well, that's the end of the meeting. I just want to say thank you all so very much for putting up with our virtual version this year. And, you know, things are different at work for everybody. And despite the technical glitches, we got through. And I think it went pretty well. So really, I so very much appreciate you guys giving us your time and attention. And hopefully we'll see each other in person and during Earth Week in 2021. So thanks everyone. And just want to say, Brendan, if you have anything to say, go ahead.
No, I just want to say thank you to everybody for the hard work on this.
Yeah. So thanks again, everyone, and hope to see you in person next year.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.